So my name is Carly Gardner. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions here at Delaware Law School. I'm joined by my colleague Eric Niskern, who's going to help me here facilitate the conversation. And then we have some really wonderful panelists who generously offered their time, their expertise, their perspective, and are joining us here tonight to help you all learn more about the career development process, opportunities here in our market and at our law school. So I'm really grateful to them, and I would love for them to introduce themselves, give us a little bit of background on who you are, your role for the students, or rather graduates, our alums in the room. If you want to let us all know what year you did graduate, maybe where you're from and where you went to undergrad, just a little background. So I will do that. We'll go down the row. I want to start with our very own Dean Tanae McDonald. She's the Assistant Dean of Career Development. So I'll let you start it off, Dean McDonald.
Oh, thank you so much. And thanks for having me. Welcome. Congrats again on getting into law school and getting into our law school, Delaware Law, which is it's just a great time to be joining us. I am the Dean of Career Development. It's work that I love. I found myself in academia after practicing for about 15 years in North Carolina. I'm licensed in South Carolina as well. I see this as a great intersection of my previous life before law school, which was in high level medical device sales and institutional sales, which is all about building relationships that last, professional relationships. And I help students do that from day one of law school. The key to getting a job at any point in your career is really rooted in relationships. And I think that's a strong suit of mine. And it's what I encourage people to understand is important and to develop the skill of doing that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We'll move down the list here to Shauna.
All right. Thanks, Carly. I really appreciate you organizing this and for the invitation to participate. So welcome, everyone. Congratulations on your acceptance to law school. My name is Shauna Ware. I'm the manager of attorney recruiting at Young Conaway, which is a firm located here in Wilmington, Delaware. I received my bachelor's degree from Penn State University and my law degree from Howard University School of Law. After my own summer experience, I realized that I didn't want to practice and was trying to find my pivot and actually spent the bulk of my career working in law school admissions before ultimately transitioning into legal recruiting at the firm that I am at now. So thank you again.
Wonderful. Thanks, Shauna. Next on just on my screen is Lauren.
Hi everyone, my name's Lauren. I graduated from Delaware Law School, I guess a year ago now, wow. In May of 2025. I am currently in a first year corporate litigation associate at Potter Anderson in Wilmington, Delaware. Before law school, what, sorry, I totally blanked. Before, I'm a Philly native. I moved to Delaware once I accepted my summer associate position at the job I'm at now. But before that, like I said, I'm a Philly native. I went to undergrad in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then I moved back to the east side of Pennsylvania. And here I am. While I was in law school at Delaware, which was not that long ago, I was editor-in-chief of Law Review, president and competition chair of the Alternative Dispute Resolution Society, and I was a member of Moot Court, First Generation Law Students Association. I did a lot of things. It's hard to keep track. But yeah, so I have nothing but great things to say about Delaware, and I'm excited for you all to hopefully have a similar wonderful experience.
Thanks so much, Lauren. And last but certainly not least, we have Aaliyah.
Hi, my name is Aaliyah Walker. I also graduated last year. I'm currently clerking in Baltimore County at the Circuit Court for the Honorable Patricia DeMayo. Before law school, I went to Dickinson College. I graduated in 2020, so I had a gap in between. And while at Delaware Law School, I was on journal.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for being here. Like I said, I think the goal of tonight, at least my goal of tonight, is to help our incoming students, learn more about career development opportunities and the process. And I think all of you bring such a valuable expertise and perspective to this conversation. So thank you all for being here with us. And so with that, I want to get started with a question that I really pitch to anyone and everyone. We can even just go down the list. to kind of ground this conversation. In a sentence, what do you wish students understood about career development before they started law school? And so this can be from your perspective as a law student, since we have a lot of lawyers on this call. It could be from your perspective where you sit in your role now. So anyone who'd like to start us off with that, please feel free to jump in.
I
Oh,
can
I'll
start.
go.
Yeah, you can start.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I think the biggest thing to remember about career services is that career services is your friend. If you don't know anyone else in the law school, you should know career services because the whole point of this whole process is to reach that end goal. You can't do that without career services. Yes, your grades are important. Yes, your professors, you should know them as well. But outside of those two things, class and your professors, career services should be also your go-to spot. They have a wealth of resources, and I know, like me, as I was a law student, I didn't use a lot of the resources. I think I was more so just like in my head, like feeling like if I do go to career services for additional support, like what's wrong with me? Why do I need support? Like why can't I do it on my own? And it's like no, like I don't know this level. Like I just graduated from undergrad. The experience in law school is totally different. What law firms are looking for versus what like me applying for an entry level job in any other industry is very different. And I just wish I had used them more. So I say go to them, use all their resources, don't feel embarrassed, see them often. If you're able to see them before you start law school during the summer, get started because the recruiting process starts so early in your law school career. You don't have a lot of time to do that once you're already in your first semester.
I second all of that. I will say I was K through JD, so my job now is my first job. So I didn't really know what it meant to apply for a job. I had obviously applied for like summer jobs and internships and stuff like that when I was an undergrad in high school, but applying for legal jobs is much different than applying for any other job. And the even now, like 3 years ago when I applied for my summer associateship, it was not to the level it is now. So career development really is your friend and they want to help you. And they're gonna know things that you don't know or show you things that you didn't know existed. They're gonna open doors for you that you otherwise wouldn't be able to find. So I would definitely take advantage of that. I mean, I've unfortunately only got to work with Dean McDonald for a semester or so, but even at that, she has been more immensely helpful than I could have ever imagined, even though I already had a job. So just think about that.
I can go next. I would also add on to that, remembering that your network is much bigger than just the people you meet in law school as well. So for instance, my judge that I clerk for right now, when I was interviewing with her, I got on LinkedIn to see if we had any connections, and it just so happened that a judge that I knew went to Temple University with her, and so he, not by my ass, just sent her a message, and I ended up getting the clerkship on the spot. So just remembering that your network is much larger than just your reaches in law school. It starts from your childhood and your parents and your friends. So use those connections as well.
Yeah, I'll tap in. Yes to everything that was said. I am a financial steward, and when I pay for something, I like to get what I pay for. You pay our salaries. We are here to serve you, as Shauna said. That is why we have our job. So avail yourself of what you paid for. The landscape of law school recruiting changes, what, weekly, Shauna? And yeah, you don't have to try to keep your finger on the pulse of those changes. That's what we do. And so we have an open door policy in my office. We also have virtual hours. We have evening hours. We are here and we're here all summer. Whereas other departments, faculty, they do not typically come to campus on summer. We work year round and we will be there for you after you graduate. We're there for you if you already have a job, but you have questions about maybe what the next move will look like or how should you comport yourself now that you have this job. How do you make sure you're keeping your eyes open on the changing landscape in the marketplace that you are now a part of? Um, we read the articles, we connect with our peers. I read the tea leaves, and we share that information with you. And I'm an out of the box thinker. And so I typically like to do things that other law schools aren't doing. And if another law school is doing something well, then I will co-opt that and we'll be doing that also. But we're here to serve. Your placement in jobs that you love is really my goal. I just don't want you to have any job. I really want you to use the 3 to 4 years of law school as an exploratory period so that when you say yes to that first job, it's a yes that you're confident in because you've seen some other things, you've weighed the pros and cons, you've talked it out, we've helped you negotiate, and you walk into that first job with excitement from day one.
That's great. And I want to stay with you on this, Dean McDonald, because you talked about, there is a shifting landscape and a timeline that students need to be aware of. So I'm wondering if you can share from a student perspective how law students should be thinking strategically about their career development over time. So what are the key phases as a 1L? And then how should their focus shift maybe from exploring, that exploration you talked about, to actually applying for these jobs?
So I love this question. And I'll start here. I am an eternal optimist. No matter what's going on in the world, I will find the bright light in it. And the bright light of the way that law school recruiting has shifted and is shifting as we speak is that first gen and legacy law students are in an equal playing field now. It doesn't matter if your grandfather was a lawyer and your father was a lawyer and your mother's a lawyer and you're surrounded by lawyers in your family. The information that they give you, if you're not joining the family firm that they have, would be outdated. I can talk to a graduate from 2 years ago, and their process finding a job will be totally different than the class of 2028, who is now rising 2Ls. So that's a beautiful thing. It means that as a first gen, you're at no disadvantage. What you have to understand is you have to be nimble. I can tell you this is what's working now, and 3 months from now, that could have changed. What you want to do is over this summer, talk to the lawyers you know. Ask them about what they do. Do they like their job? You can tell that very easily, very quickly. And then have those exploratory conversations. You're not really asking for summer work now, but you are exploring to see what people do. You want to make sure that your documents, your marketing documents, or your resume and cover letter, you want them to be in pristine condition. And we're going to make an offer to you at the end of this call to help you with that. But that's what you do now. Talk to your professors once you get here. Many of them have practiced. What did you like? Where do you see me? What did you do in law school that really prepared you for the legal work that you did? And start to mimic that. So first semester is going to go by so fast. And a part of your first semester, in addition to making sure that you are doing as well as you can in your classes, is starting to apply to law jobs, which is crazy, but that's the way it is and it can be done. And I say schedule everything. Have a schedule block, maybe 1.5, 2 hours a week that you dedicate to all things career development. And during that time, you are exploring, you're applying, you are talking to upperclassmen to see what they're doing. But if you write it into your schedule, that I think would help with being overwhelmed. So a lot of your classmates at the end of their first semester will likely know where they're going to be spending either that first summer or their second summer. And to just make sure you don't slip into FOMO, that you should be doing everything like everybody else. That's where having that one exploring to figure out what you like. Big law is not for everyone. It wasn't for me. I had no desire to do that, but I know how it feels in law school when you feel like, well, everyone else is doing that. I should do it too. Part of the exploration is exploring who you are as a person, what your core values are, the workplaces where you do well, areas and places work that you feel that you can thrive in. And only you know the answer to that question. You don't know it now. So you will be working to find the answer to that question. And the process continues on as you matriculate through law school. But what you do really doesn't change. You schedule career development and your job search into your study schedule. You update your documents. So after you get your first job, you make sure you include that. After you get your grades and you get that wonderful GPA, you add that to your resume. So you're always refining and updating your documents, always talking to people to figure out what they like about what they do, or what they don't like, and then also the self-exploration. And you meet with us often.
And I was just going to ask that because I really love that point about, I mean, this is an ongoing process. This will be something that you are working at the same way that you're working at
Yeah.
developing your skills in the classroom. It's something that's ongoing. And so I was going to ask, and you read my mind here, when and how, or how early and how should students be engaging with career development at Delaware Law School?
So the summer is a good time to work on the document piece of it. And we will be sending out some tools to help you do just that. I don't want to see any of you until after October 1st because I want you to figure out where your classes are, what a tort is. It's not a tart, it's a tort. Who your professors are, when their office hours are. I want you to dedicate that first month and a half to figuring out law school. And you won't have it figured out by October 1st, but I do want you to dedicate up until October 1st to getting that together. After that, we're going to be doing some virtual programming that will be on demand that you can watch at your leisure. When you have that study block for job searching and career development, you go in and you watch those videos. When you get to a point where you're stuck, I've done this, I have these questions, I found the answer, but there are some questions that I just don't have the answer to. You pop in and you see us. You can do a walk-in and we will have schedule appointments through it's like Handshake, but in law school, it's called Simplicity. You'll get access to that mid-October. But really, the first 5, 6 weeks, it's all law school.
That's great. That's great perspective. So I want to turn to Shauna now. So we talked a little bit about maybe some of the practical steps students can be taking when they're here with us in the building. But I want students to also start thinking about the skills they should be developing, from a law firm perspective, what they're thinking about. So wondering if you could share, when your law firm is evaluating law students for either summer associate positions or new associate roles, what factors are most meaningful for you, and how do those expectations evolve the same way that Dean McDonald was talking about from early law school career to later stages?
Yeah. So I think, of course, besides grades, because but grades are really, really important, but I think everyone knows that. What we look for in particular, because Delaware is a very unique market, it's a very small market, we want people who have a commitment or interest. I mean, or a connection to Delaware. So if you're not from the area, your only connection is that you attend Delaware Law School. We want to know that you're going to stay with us long term. That is something, a tried and true model that's been really successful for Young Conaway. Our attorneys stay for a very long time. We don't have a high turnover rate, and we would like to continue on with not having a high turnover rate. So a lot of students will submit cover letters, and if you don't have a clear interest, I mean, you don't have a clear connection to the state, we look for your cover letter to determine, why are they interested in Delaware? Why are they interested in Young Conaway? And so many students leave that information out, and a lot of them don't get through to the next round because we can't clearly identify why they want to be here. In addition to that, I think the law students sometimes will, when they're applying to firms, they will leave things off their resume that they feel like isn't legal related. And that's not what we're looking for. Like, especially for someone like Lauren, who went from kindergarten all the way up through JD, she's probably never worked in a firm. Does that mean she's not going to be a successful attorney? Absolutely not. There are so many other factors that are part of your applications that show us, your ability to write well. We do request a writing sample. We look how you spend your time in college. Maybe you didn't have, we do request undergraduate transcripts as well. And maybe you only had a 3.1 GPA in undergrad, but then you also worked a full-time job at McDonald's. That's important to us. That shows a person who has grit, they're determined, they're hardworking. Those are the type of people that we like to see. So we want you to include that in your resume. One of the smaller things that I think a lot of times I think people see as they don't see it as something important, but it really is, because it definitely draws a connection to the readers, your interests. What are you interested in? I've had students come in with these really random interests, and one person on our hiring committee was I'm so fascinated. I have to talk to this person. Just because they share a similar interest, or it's something that seemed really cool and of interest to them. And that one little connection made the difference between going in the reject pile versus bringing them in for an interview. So making certain that, you're putting your best foot forward with using career services, working on, your schoolwork, make sure your grades are top notch, but then make sure you include any leadership opportunities. That's another important factor. If you were president of your sorority or you were, president or vice president or membership chair of, one of the clubs on campus, that is important. Again, it shows that you are able to balance your time while still maintaining your studies. Anything that you're doing in law school, we also want to know about that too. If you are working a part-time job while you're in law school, that is important because law school is very challenging. So if you make a 3-5 and you're working a part-time, some of them even full-time jobs, we're super impressed by that. Like that's a great, quality to have about yourself because being a lawyer, there will be long nights, there will be busy seasons. Like you may have competing assignments where, same deadline, both of them are really present. What do I do? But if you have that type of experience coming into the industry, like again, you're already one step ahead of most people. And that's something we definitely look for when we're reviewing applications and cover letters.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice about, including things that maybe you as a student don't see as the
Mhm.
direct line, but those of us who are, in this space know what those transferable skills are. So I think that's a really great point. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering, Shauna, if you can share if there are any other kind of misconceptions, things that you think, that are kind of out there in the world that are inaccurate when students are thinking of assumptions about how I need to be, and how
Mhm.
firms are thinking about me.
I think that's probably the biggest misconception is not putting, non-legal work on their resume, but then also, especially with the timing of OCI and, us reviewing applications, I've noticed this year at least, that they would cast a very, very wide net, which I understand you want to make sure you secure a job. However, when you're doing 6, 7 interviews a week on top of being a first semester law student, that becomes challenging. And it definitely shows in the interview. You can see, where they're drained or they're depleted. And they may seem like they're on and they're doing well. And it's like, no, like you're kind of like staring off into space as I'm speaking. Like, did you hear what I just asked you? Your answers are very short. It's because you've already experienced in a burnout that you wouldn't 5 years ago because you're only applying to firms where you have an interest in. So make sure, oh, sorry, can I go back a little bit? I also want to say, making sure that you have an interest in something that our firm offers. That is a big one. I've gotten so many resumes and cover letters where they're like, hey, I'm interested in family law. We don't have a family law practice. So you're not, so you tell me how much you're interested in my firm and how great it is. That doesn't mean anything when you've already identified something that we don't offer. So you're not interested in my firm. So making sure that the firms you're applying to, that you really have a demonstrated interest in. Are you interested in location? Do you have a practice area that you can see yourself in long term? Because for the most part, most practitioners, and I mean, it could be different at other places, once they come in into a particular section, for the most part, they pretty much stay there. So you want to make sure that you're happy within there. So um, use this time. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I'm gonna stop there because I was about to just jump ahead.
No, it's all good. I think this is all great, great information, and we can take this conversation any way we want. But I think this is actually a good segue into what I want to ask our alums, our recent grads, um, about, kind of looking back. Can you describe your path from starting law school to your current role, and if there's any decisions along the way that ended up being especially helpful? I think that kind of comes from where we were just talking about, we keep building on this, right? It's kind of a process, and it's all about learning and identifying what you're interested in and being able to articulate that. So, wondering if you'd be able to share any perspective, and I'm happy for either of you to start, Aaliyah or Lauren.
My connection cut off for a second. Would you mind repeating the question
Oh
really
yeah,
quickly?
sure, no problem. I asked if you could
Okay.
briefly describe your path from law school to your current role and any decisions that you made that ended up being really helpful.
Okay. I'll let Lauren take that one first.
So I'm a first generation college grad, first generation law student. And when I had applied to law school, OCI I think it was probably the last normal cycle. And now I had done really well my first semester, and I thought that I wanted to do family law. And I had no idea what this concept of big law was because I wasn't on TikTok for one. I wasn't really like playing into social media. And I'm a first generation, so like I didn't really know. But I met with my tours professor who just like encouraged me to go through the process of OCI um, in the summer, which I understand now no longer exists. And so I went through the OCI process and I applied to firms across Delaware and Pennsylvania. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but like Shauna said, I researched the firms. I went on the websites, I researched firms. I like limited it to the people. Like I went on their website and limited it to Widener alums and reached out to them and talked to alums about what their day-to-day is like in the firm and like what the firm does to see if it would be something that was a good fit for me. And once I narrowed those firms down, I applied to all of them. I think I had like 30 something interviews my 1L summer, and it is exhausting. Like I don't know who said it. I think Shauna said it. Like you will feel burnt out. So I really would try and target the firms that you are most interested in. Anyways, that's besides the point. So I went through the interview process my 1L summer, and in July after my 1L summer, I accepted a summer associate position with the firm that I'm at now. And I did the whole 10-week summer associate program. And throughout my firm offers like a wide array of like corporate adjacent practices. And so I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I went through with an open mind. I talked to people like in the different groups to have a better understanding what they did and did assignments in those groups. And then I did a fellowship my 3L year in the Delaware Supreme Court, which was like heavily focused on Delaware corporate law. And so that's how I decided what I wanted to do. But like I said, this is based off of like a lot of experience, and like getting my feet wet and like trying, not a lot of experience like in the field, but like of like trying things out and like really seeing like what I wanted to do. And I got lucky that I ended up really loving my job. But I think it's definitely difficult as a 1L. You're trying to figure out what you want to do. And so it's okay if you take a job your 1L summer or your 2L summer and you don't love it and you realize that it's not for you. Everyone's path is not linear and it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, my path is definitely a little bit different. I don't recommend this, but I actually started working my spring of 1L. So I continued that. I worked at a family law firm and I continued that through that summer and realized that family law was not for me, and that's okay. So the next summer I did OCI and I ended up at Power Home Remodeling with their in-house counsel, which was a great experience. But with that experience, I had to keep in mind that I wouldn't be offered a summer role. They weren't hiring for associates. It was just an opportunity that was strictly for that summer. And I got a lot out of it, but I had to keep in mind that I was applying while I was at the internship for my post grad opportunities. And so I didn't end up getting something over the summer. So then I waited a little while to see when some more clerkship opportunities would become available. And then that's when I applied to my clerkship in the winter of my 3L year. But I'll say most of my breaks were always spent applying to things. And sometimes you might apply your whole summer, get nothing. You might apply throughout the school year, get nothing. You will always get something at some point. So just remembering, like, even if you get something in April or the last minute, you will get something before the summer starts.
Thank you both for sharing that. And something that I'm kind of thinking about really connecting to really your interests. So I know you are both leaders on this campus and active members of our community. But is there anything that you did kind of outside of your career development journey, the work that you did, that you think prepared you for the roles you're in now, or even for just getting that job? So anything, in the classroom, outside of the classroom, things that you did at Delaware Law, that you think made a difference for you?
I can go first for that one. I made a point to always attend events like in Philly in different areas, some events because I knew I wanted to come back to Baltimore. So just always attending networking events and like building those relationships, not just for work opportunities, but also sometimes they just can answer questions about like life. At some point, a lot of the attorneys you'll meet are from the same neighborhood as you, or might have did a certain career before going to law school, so they can answer way more questions than you're ever anticipating. So just building those relationships outside of law school, because Philly also has so many other law schools. There's other students for you get to know, so many great attorneys for you to get to know. So going to those events, whether they're social events or work-related events, making yourself visible in other spaces as well.
I would say one, networking events, absolutely. But two, join an honor society, more specifically, join law review or journal. I think that those inherently come with networking events, but also having that on your resume will help you immensely. Most firms and clerkships won't even consider you if you don't have a law review on your resume. So whatever you can, like, do it. It was such a rewarding experience. And it's taught me how to talk to people, how to work with people, how to blue book. I mean, everyone, all the first years that I work with come right to me to check their blue book sites, which you don't even know what a blue book site is yet, but you will, and then you'll understand what I'm saying. And I would say just join things on campus because, again, it's great to have things on your resume, but it's also great to get involved on campus and network because you never know when you're gonna cross someone who at an event that you have like interest in, and then you have that common ground of the organization that you were both in.
Can I hop in there, Carly?
Absolutely.
So one thing that we do is we search the tri-state, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. I want to get my tentacles a little bit more into New York and Maryland. And we find employers that are interested in hiring our students. And that's kind of the requirement to entry on our campus is that you have to be excited and interested about our students. So when we bring in firms, representatives, alums, hiring managers, that's the low-hanging fruit. Come to the programs. They're coming to where you are, taking time away from billable hours or their actual work to come and meet you. And our office prides ourselves. We have a big program in November called November to Remember, where I don't even want to say the number because it scares me. And then we do it again with March Gladness. But even outside of those target months, we are always bringing in firms that want to get to know you and that want to avail themselves to you so that you can get your questions answered. And Shauna came with Young Conway, and I love this, and we're going to continue to do it. They did something very informal that we call chat and chew. They brought in snacks. They came at a time where it was class changing or the end of the day. She came out as the recruiter, the hiring manager, and brought some new associates. And I think both were Delaware Law alums. And it was great. Students informally got to ask questions. I encouraged our students to come dressed for an interview. That impression will last. That is not the time where you want to show up in sweats and shorts. But we do a lot to make those programs happen. It is a lot of work. And it's the easiest thing in the world to me for a law student is to come meet employers, potential employers that have come to you. And so, yeah, come out to the programs.
Yeah,
I went to all of them. I can't stress that enough. That is how I found my job and realized that this is where I wanted to be. And then when I went through the interview process, people remembered me.
Yes. And then we had you on the panel. When we brought Potter in, Lauren was on the panel. So I'm telling you, those employers take notes and they will remember you. Lauren is not exaggerating. We have long memories. I think it's studying for the bar that really changes your ability to memorize things. But come out to the programs. We try to time them as best we can with when you have the bandwidth to do that. But again, if you schedule an hour and a half or 2 hours a week to your job search, then let coming to the program be that thing that you do that week.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I want to stick with you, Dean McDonald, for a second, because you just talked about, we bring all these employers to campus. We have connections to connect you kind of off campus. So I'm wondering if we could zoom out and if you could kind of give students a sense of and describe the variety of roles that Delaware Law students are actually pursuing over the summer for their 1L kind of opportunities and experience.
Well, this is what I love about this law school. It is a variety. We have students that come in saying, I want to serve, I want to do public interest. We have a number of students that say, I want to do a judicial clerkship when I graduate. That judicial clerkship, and that's what Aaliyah is doing now, it is a job. And it lasts up to 2 years. It looks so great on your resume. It becomes a resume booster. But what it does for the clerk is you get to see how the sausage is made. Number one, you get to see of what is presented by attorneys, what resonated with the judge as they make their ruling. But you also get to see great lawyers, good ones, mediocre ones, and bad ones. And I don't think there's a better way to improve your lawyering skills than by seeing it every single day for a year. Big law, some people see that as the holy grail. It's a lot of money, but you do kind of turn your life over to that. But there's a myriad of opportunities between public interest and big law. There are tons of firms out there of varying sizes, some that are mission driven that could really speak to your core values. Others are practice areas like trusted estates, the hottest practice area right now. And I think it will be hot for the next 3 to 4 years. Well, people don't know there's some favorable state laws in Delaware that make creating your trust in Delaware, regardless of where you live in the country, more beneficial to the creator of that trust. So firms are desperately looking for new lawyers that are committed to trust and estates. Well, there are some prerequisites to be really good at that. And you need to take federal tax in law school. And there was another course. I can't remember. Of course, trust and estates was federal tax, but that's what I'm always trying to see what's new and now and what's coming and where the market is going and where the money is. Because yeah, you do this to make money. But very few people do law school just to make money. There's a ton of other ways to make more money. When you go to law school, I think there's a little piece of every law student that has a problem in their spirit that they want to help solve. And there's a lot of ways to solve a problem, a lot of ways to skin a cat.
Yeah, and I'll just echo that. I mean, there are tons of opportunities, tons of ways to use your JD. It really, I believe, is the most versatile, most powerful degree you can have, and skill set you can have. So, tons of opportunities. So I'm wondering if Dee McDonald and maybe Shauna, you could weigh in then. So, all these opportunities out there. What should students, incoming students, realistically focus on either this summer or right away? And what should they not stress about?
I'll
I'll
let you
go.
start, Shauna.
Okay. Old me, admissions me would say nothing. Do nothing over the summer. You're going to be busy when school starts. You don't need to do anything. But now with recruiting cycle again, that has moved so much earlier. I highly recommend getting to know some of the practice areas. If you don't come from like a family or you don't have friends that are lawyers, you can't ask them about their practice areas. Like Lauren said, go to some events. You can actually do some research online. Look at some of the firm's website. They always have like a synopsis of like what they do, like the type of work that they're working on. Look through it so you have an idea when a recruiting season starts, like what firms that you actually want to look at. Work on that resume. That resume is going to be so important. Make sure that's ready to go when school starts. And aside from that, like I said, researching the firms, knowing about their practice areas, making sure your resume, cover letter is ready to go. Those are probably the most important. If you have any writing insecurities, that is also a really big one. Writing is really, really important. And in that first semester of law school, when you're applying, you may not have a graded writing sample that you're able to submit, but if you have one close enough that you've worked on throughout the year, you're more than welcome to submit that. So I say make sure you go into law school. You don't have to be an expert writer, but being a very clear, writer who's paying attention to punctuation and grammar, making sure that all those ducks are in a row. That will go very, very long way. Are we a little lenient with the writing because we understand that you're in your first semester of law school to a certain extent, but there are some basics that a lot of law students don't know. And it is a steep learning curve in legal writing. So whatever you can do to kind of make sure that you're at the same level with some of your classmates coming in, I would highly recommend working on that over the summer.
Mhm. Absolutely. Ditto to all of that. I like the question about stress. Life is stressful. Law school is stressful, the bar exam super stressful. So one thing that you can do over the summer is to find new ways to acknowledge and manage your stress. You can't get rid of it. And I'm not even an advocate of even attempting to do that because stress, when it's healthy, it plays a positive role in your life. It motivates you, it steals you, and it energizes you. And so that's where you want to keep it. I teach a 1L skills class in the spring, and I started every class with a mindfulness technique. And at the end of the class, and we had a lot of fun in that class. I said, well, what were the takeaways? And one by one, students would raise their hand and say, it was this particular breathing technique. It was this mindfulness 3-minute thing that we did in class. I'm going to do that all through law school. But you can so easily use AI. That's a great way to use AI. And Google to find ways that you can manage stress in stressful situations. Um, Working on getting those documents in pristine condition. Come in with a plan for maybe the first 30 days of law school. Develop that plan. I would say at the top of that list is finding a mentor who's a 2L at your law school. I highly encourage that. I do a 2L, 1L session where we bring in food, and the whole goal is for the 1Ls, the new law students, to go introduce themselves to a 2L and ask them to be their mentor. Who better knows the answers to your questions than the person who just did it last year? And that's how you forge those relationships. My students that are at really great opportunities this summer that were rooted in their grades, they all had 2L mentors and they availed themselves of their mentors. The number of students that were like, I'm still looking for a job. I said, well, where's your mentor working this summer? Oh, I don't know. Did you not meet with your mentor who's in this building every day? But the ones who did, I would go back to the mentors and say, what kind of questions were they asking? Meaningful questions that you might be embarrassed to ask in a class. You may be embarrassed to ask me, which don't be embarrassed. But that mentor will serve you well. And then over the summer, talk to your friends and family. Everybody knows a lawyer. If you go to church, the church has a lawyer. If you are a member of a gym, the gym has a lawyer. And just ask them, could you just make an introduction to see if someone would have a conversation with me? Everyone has horror stories from law school, but a lot of people have really great stories about law school and are willing to give you some success tips.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I know that you have a special offer, Dean McDonald, a way that they can, students here on this call can really get a step ahead. So I'm wondering if you could talk a
Yes.
little bit about that.
Yeah, so Shauna mentioned it, Lauren mentioned it. Everyone knows you have to, the legal resume is different from any other resume that you've written and that you've seen. So we are offering something super special to you all right now. And this is a summer activity. We're going to send out our resume and cover letter guide and our fillable resume template. And in that guide, it talks about those things that Shauna mentioned. Like, do I put that I was a camp counselor on this? Absolutely. But you focus on the skills. Hey, I was responsible for 25 5-year-olds throughout the summer. I had to create engaging programming every day, and I had to keep them safe. That resonates with a lawyer to say, oh, they can handle responsibility and be in real time with people in a completely different age bracket because when you start practicing, a lot of your clients will be a lot older than you or at different stages of life. So yes, bartender, yes, put it on your resume, but highlight the facts. Because I provided the best customer service. I was there to listen to their problems. I introduced them to things they did not know were available. But yes, find a way to include that on your resume. And the guide will give you some tips there, some guidance there, and the fillable resume template. So you take your time, you send us best and final, not rough draft. What do you think? We don't want to see that. Best and final, and we will give you feedback that will help you get that resume in pristine condition before your first day of law school. So the rule is you have to use the format. If it's not in the format, that will be the feedback that you get. This is not in the proper format. We shop several formats around to recruiters in the tri-state, and the one that we present to you is the one that overwhelmingly they chose as the one they want to see. But if you get it back to us by July 15th, by 5 p.m., you will have your feedback and you'll be so far ahead. of other law students at other law schools because you will be starting law school with a document that's pristine.
Dean
Amazing. And so we
McDonald,
will, oh, I'm
I
sorry.
wanted to jump in. That's okay. There was a question in the chat that speaks to the resume. Somebody asked about the length of a resume. Do you talk about that in the guide that you're sending, how long a resume should be?
We talk about it a lot over and over again. It does not matter how much of a career that you've had, because I went to law school later in life. That does not matter. Your resume as a first year law student must be and can only be one page. Shauna, what are your thoughts on that? As the woman who makes the
Yeah.
decisions.
I'll say this. If you have less than 10 years of experience, your resume should be no longer than 2 pages, like 1 to 2 pages at the absolute max. After that, especially if you've only worked a few years, there's nothing you can possibly say in 3, 4, 5 pages that we need to know. Like, you want to highlight the important aspects of your job and the skills that you think are directly transferable to a legal role. So yeah, you may have mopped the floors at McDonald's, but how is that transferable to a legal career? But like Dean McDonald said, if you work with, 25, camp students or throughout the summer, that shows your ability to work with people that are just beyond your age group that, and that's important because we actually had a session about that recently about closing the generational gap, communication gap, because some partners, they're older and they don't want a text from an associate, but there are some newer partners who are like, yes, send me a text, don't email me, don't call me, I just want to, communicate by text. Everyone's different. And so we try to like kind of bridge that communication gap between older and younger generations. So I definitely include that information on there, but you don't need to include everything. So I think 1 to 2 pages at the absolute max.
Yeah. We say one, and you'll hear
Yeah.
me say that over and over again. They won't turn the page. You don't have that much because really what we're trying to get you to do again is exercise judgment.
Mhm.
To Shauna's point, if you mop the floors at McDonald's, we're not going to put that on there.
Mhm.
But it is deciphering, well, I did do some things that I think I developed skills that could be transferable skills. That is the judgment. And that's how we can, and it translates to bar passage too. Um, get it to one page. Put your skin, put your thinking cap on and say, no, these are the highlights. Your resume is an advertisement of your transferable skills.
Mhm.
Not everything that you did, but the
Yeah.
transferable skills that speak to the needs of the average legal employer.
And
Absolutely.
also, sorry, if
No,
you
go
can
ahead.
quantify any achievements, I highly recommend doing that. So if you were the membership chair for your sorority and you increase enrollment, it's very different to say you increase enrollment by 20% versus you saying I increased enrollment. So if you can try to quantify some of your achievements on your resume.
That's
Yeah.
great advice. And I
Mhm.
know that the guide that Dean McDonald just mentioned, I know is going to give you all a lot of good context for this kind of summer activity. And I just want to reiterate that we will be sending out an email after this event with the guide and the fillable form and a way to submit these resumes to the Career Development Office. So thank you, Dean McDonald, for that offer. Really just reflective of how great and supportive your office is, but I also think a larger reflection on who we are at Delaware Law School. We are here to partner with you to make sure that you're successful from day one all the way through and beyond. So
Oh, there's another piece
appreciate
to
that
it.
offer. Go
I
for it.
forgot.
Go
I
for it.
forgot. There's more. Last year we did something new and it went over really well, and Dean Clark has agreed to do it again. So the first 20 students to submit their resume will get an invitation to have donuts with Dean Clark. Very informal session. You get to have some one-on-one time with him. He's amazing. Um, and students really like that. And I got the okay from Dean Clark that we can do that again. So the first 15 or 20, we may push it up to 20 that submit their resumes for review that are in the proper format will get that invitation to have donuts with Dean Clark.
I love that. I love a good incentive, yeah, especially to have time with Dean Clark, who is just so dynamic.
Hey,
But at
Carly.
this point, yeah, go for it.
Sorry, can I give one other recommendation?
Sure.
I totally forgot about this. We have a partner who was a former publisher before going to law school, expert writer, and I overheard him refer a legal writing book to one of our associates. It's called A Lawyer Writes. So if you're looking for some good reading material over the summer, A Lawyer Writes, and it's by Christine Nero Coughlin.
That's great advice. I actually know
Mhm.
that book and it is excellent. So, great suggestion. At this point, I want to open things up if there are questions from the audience. What we can do is we can either have you put it in the chat, and Eric, if you can help facilitate that, we can do it that way. Or if you just want to unmute and jump in, I hope you get by now from this panel that we're all really approachable and friendly and eager to answer your questions. So, I want to open it up with these last few final minutes to give you all a chance to ask any burning questions you have of our panelists.
Hello, can I go first?
Absolutely.
Hi, my name is Candice. I'm an incoming part-time student. I just wanted to know if there were any did part-time does part-time students have any, would you say, disadvantages as far as working with career services? Are you available to us in the same way, or just wondering?
Thank you for that question, Candy. Yes, I used to teach in an evening program. Evening students are rock stars. I still don't know how you do it all, but you all do it, and our evening students do it very well. We had an ED pivot session with one of our deans. Dean Ferris was an evening student who also went on to be a Walcott Fellow and got into big law, and we're so happy to have him back. But we did a session with him to talk about what that process was like. So those videos will be made available. But as far as access to career development, we work as best we can with you all's schedule. So I will try my best to schedule programs because I do want you all to get in front of some employers at a time when you're like just getting in the building right before you have to go to class. And we have employers that are committed because they want to know our evening students specifically. We do a job board or send out emails for employers that are looking for evening students because you all bring a great level of professionalism to the table that's very attractive to employers. We also have evening drop-in sessions via Zoom that we do once a week for evening students. But I'll be at you all's evening orientation, but if there's ever a time where the evening students need to see me specifically, then I will set aside time and come in and do an in-person program. And I'm totally open to doing them on Saturdays or Fridays when typically there are no classes. But I try to do, and I want to do more to make sure that the evening and part-time students have as robust an experience at law school and with us as possible.
There's a question in the chat, maybe for Lauren, because I know you, Lauren, you were on law review. There was a student who's asking if journals, law reviews are open to part-time students as well.
Yes, unless it's changed, which I doubt it has, you are eligible to grade on and write on at the conclusion of your first year as an evening division. And then I believe moot court you can try out at the start of your 2L. You just have to have taken legal methods too, which unless the curriculum has changed, you will take it your second semester of your first year. But I'm not sure what the requirements are for transactional law because I was not a member of that, but I believe it's the same timeline as moot court, like your second year.
Yeah, and I'll just add, all of those opportunity, all of our student organizations, all of our honor societies, even a handful of our clinics are all open to full-time and part-time students. And a lot of the work you're going to be doing, at least in journal, I'll speak for like the law reviews, those are things, your assignments that you can do in your own time, right? So when you have assignments that you are given, you work that into the schedule. So you have work. You've got law school work. You've scheduled in time to work in career development, as Dee McDonald said, and then you schedule in time to work on these extracurricular activities. I know certainly that there are part-time students currently serving on all of our honor societies. So thought I would add that there.
And Dean McDonald, somebody asked, what is now considered the optimal time to apply for summer positions?
Ooh, that's a toughie. That's a toughie. It varies by employer. Big Law is starting, I think, November 1st again. They'll open a portal. They will get to you through our office, through your LinkedIn. Oh, I forgot to mention, you want to update your LinkedIn if you can to reflect that you're in law school and start to build a network as a law student because you will get direct opportunities directly sent to you via LinkedIn. We repost them. You want to make sure that we're connected on LinkedIn because I spend maybe 30 minutes a day going through LinkedIn and reposting opportunities. For public interest, medium-sized firms, smaller firms, all of which you will get meaningful and amazing experience, those tend to do their hiring in that spring semester. Some will have what is called resume collects around December throughout the break and start interviewing. Most interviews, regardless of when the portals or you apply, will be in January, February for that first summer. Judges, honestly, because the majority of those are unpaid, if you're at a Christmas party and there's a judge and you strike up a conversation, you can say, hey, I'm looking for a summer opportunity. I would love to intern with you. And you can get a job on the spot that way. I hope that answers the overall question.
Thank you. I see, Olivia, you have your hand up.
Yes, hi. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for all this information. I feel like I have like pre-law school jitters, and this is actually making me feel a lot better about it.
Hey,
My
Michael, I'm
question,
in a law school meeting. What's up?
Oh,
thank you, Marissa. My question is, you talked about, I think it was Dean McDonald, you talked about prerequisites to specific careers and whatever career you choose to go into. Through the career development office, will we be able to, I guess, like talk to maybe a specific like advisor or counselor to get more information about whatever area we're looking to go into and maybe what classes we should be focusing on, that kind of thing? Or is that kind of up to us?
A little of both. You know, I like to hold students to a standard of put your skin in the game. Because whenever you start working, wherever you work, when you present something, your work product, they're expecting that you gave it 110%. Now, you may not have gotten to the end of it, but you don't want to go in with I took a stab at it. What do you think? And so when you come meet with us, and we can always meet. But I want you to start with telling me what you did, what you learned, who you talked to. Then we'll get you some answers to the questions that you have. That is a practice that'll serve you well as you work through the summers, but really as you become an attorney, where there is no hand holding.
Mhm.
And so I don't want to coddle too much here. And then you get thrown out into the real world and you're like, well, who's going to answer my question? Start with making your best efforts to answer your own questions and come to us when you get stuck.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
we have next is Sienna and then Matthew have their hands raised.
Hello, good afternoon. My question is that, how does grading look at Delaware law, and what are recruiters looking at when they look at our transcript?
Carly, do you want to jump in for that, or it's on me, isn't it?
It can be, or as I don't know if Shauna has a perspective too, but I'm happy to tackle that at first. I mean, I think something that was mentioned earlier is, grades are so important for a lot of reasons, right? So one is because you want to get the job, but two, your first year grades, those are the classes that are the building blocks for everything else you will do. So I think thinking about it, understanding that the grades are important, of course, for jobs, but I think understanding that it's more important because you want to understand the material because that's your foundation to build your house on. I think that that's really important. I think, again, I'll let my career development experts kind of speak to this, but I think we're, just like how you got into law school, employers are looking for students who can do the work, academically capable, but they're also looking at those intangibles in your resume and the things, the grit and the resilience, determination. Person's going to work hard. So I might defer to my other colleagues a little bit on maybe what they're seeing when they're looking at transcripts.
Yeah. Shauna?
Honestly, when we're looking, it's because it happens so early on. We only have first semester grades now when we're reviewing applications. So, of course, the higher the GPA, the better. However, we are a little bit more understanding because, again, we understand that it's only first semester grades. And sometimes people do need that ramp up of second semester to really kind of get their footing in law school. So, we are a little bit more lenient. And the great thing about, I think, like, Young Conaway having me in particular is that I worked in law school admissions, so I'm super familiar with like the grading at the various schools. So I can kind of talk to them about like, hey, this school has a really tough grading curve, so we got to be a little bit more lenient. A 3.1 there is not the same as a 3.3 or 3.4 somewhere else.
Mhm.
Like it's comparable because they do have a harder
Yeah.
curve than some of the other schools. But just making sure their GPA is as high as possible.
Yeah.
If there's anything that occurred in the first semester, definitely feel free to include a brief note, like a paragraph at the most, like stating like, hey, I had XYZ that I was dealing with, or, I had to unexpectedly move out of my apartment and that kind of caused things, or, whatever it is that may have had any type of impact on your grades, address it in a brief little one paragraph statement so we know, because we don't want to have to draw the conclusions for you. Like, you should be able to connect all the dots for us. Like, because I can make up 1,000 assumptions as to why your grades aren't where I think they should be. It could be a host of different reasons. Some people are a little bit more I don't want to say crazier, but some people are a little bit more
Mhm.
neurotic about it than others. Like I may say, oh, maybe it's just an adjustment period. They'll do
Yeah.
better second semester. Someone else may say, yeah, this person's not capable of being a successful lawyer based on
Mhm.
one semester of grades and
Mhm.
not want to move the candidate forward. So we want you to connect those dots.
And grades are important. We've said that a million times. Um, we've thrown out some 3.5s and some 3.2s, but there's going to be someone who has a great career who got a 2.5 their first semester. Your grades are a data point. It's not the end point. So your goal is to do your absolute best. If you're not stretched in law school, then you're not giving your absolute best. You should feel some pressure. If you did well all through your education, 17 years of education, and you're putting forth that same effort in law school, you're not doing enough. It is a different world. It's a different playing field. The players on the field are all really great players. And so you have to put in the work. And the grade you earn, that's the story that you tell of how you earned that grade. If it's not what you wanted, that happened to me. I had a story for that. And I killed it after that. But I've been on hiring committees before. I love a story. I always would lean toward hiring the person with the story than the person who only just had a great GPA. Because you're in the business, you're entering a business that's about being able to connect with people. And when you meet those people as a lawyer, you're meeting them at sometimes the lowest point of their lives, when they've reached a problem they could not solve on their own. And you have to be able to connect with people. And those who have their own personal story of their journey, they typically are the ones who can connect with people the best. So do your best, and what grade you earn, own it. Own it and be proud. And if it needs improvement, then that's a talking point during an interview. This is what I changed. This is what I learned. This is what I'm doing now. And this is what I expect the outcome to be. And an employer that's looking for someone with that type of grit, resourcefulness, tenacity will be excited about you.
Yeah, that's great. I
Before
know, oh, I was going to say, I know we're
I,
running over time, so I appreciate everyone hanging on, but I want to get to Matthew. And the one more question that we have in the chat, if there are other questions that we haven't gotten to, we can certainly connect after this. But I want to give Matthew the floor, and then we'll go to Angelique before we wrap up.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you guys for putting on this event. It's been like super, super informative and stuff. So I really appreciate it. And so my question is, if you could touch on, I know you guys said that for big law firms, we should start applying by like November 1st. So I was wondering about how how do you send your grades to them? Like applying before you get your grades back and kind of how that works.
So the big law firms are the ones who have portals that will open November 1st. In that portal, I think they'll all be using Flow Recruit. There's a little video that will send you about that. And then if you're on LinkedIn, they will send you instructions. Flow Recruit is very easy. There's an opportunity to start your application and then to go back and amend it once you get your grades in.
Okay,
And
thank
all
you
the
so much.
firms, sorry, also to add, the firms are very different. Some firms, like I was at a networking session in New York in the spring, and one of the firms I overheard, if you didn't have any prior legal experience, they would not bring you in for an interview prior to your grades being released. They were looking for prior legal experience. For us, we did accept applications before our application opened November 15th, I believe, last year. We did review applications throughout the Christmas holiday break, and then once we returned in January. But we did bring students into interview, but we did not make any offers until grades were released. Um, like she said, through Flow Recruit, you're able to update your transcript once you have it available. I recommend doing it as soon as possible. I don't recommend waiting until you receive your grades to apply, because at that point, you're going to be in a long list of applications that have already come through. Just update it once you have it. And I'm sure the firms will be totally fine with that.
So we do have a question, and I know it's after 7 o'clock, and Aaliyah, I know, has to leave, but I think she could give us some great perspective on the question. But there's a question that came in asking, how do students who attend Delaware Law but want to practice outside of Delaware fare when it comes to employment and internship opportunities? And Aaliyah, I know you're in Maryland. Do you want to start
Yeah,
responding to
so
that?
I definitely can touch on that. If you want to go to, I would say Pennsylvania or New Jersey, we have so like Delaware Law has so many connections there. You definitely won't have much issue finding opportunities there. For Maryland, it was a little bit tougher for me, but also kind of a lot of this was talked about already. A lot of your skills will transfer. So if you're going to somewhere like Maryland and you have family there, and if you want to stay there over the summers, I would just say you may have to make some of those connections yourself, and you know, using our network, but you may have to just search for opportunities there, or asking you McDonald for about alumni that may be in that area, I would say is another resource. But particularly if you're looking for New Jersey or Pennsylvania, I think that we have so many connections there. It's as if we're there too.
Yeah, I
Hop
think
in.
that's a,
Yeah,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No,
Well,
go
about
for it.
60% of our student body are Pennsylvania natives who plan to take the Pennsylvania bar, roughly. 30 from New Jersey and maybe 20 to 25% in Delaware. Now, once they get to Delaware law and fall in love with the Delaware way, some of those New Jersey and Pennsylvania students say, hey, Delaware is pretty cool. I want to stay here. But as far as moving beyond those states, to Aaliyah's point, we can help you. There is an option called reciprocity where you can apply and I have a student now who's in Ohio at a great internship. I need to email him, but through reciprocity, we can reach out to a law school in the state where you want to go, and they can grant you access to their Simplicity job board. So you can see the employers that are looking for law students, recent grads in that area. And we have students that fare well doing that. The reciprocity is changing. We always say yes when we get a request, but I will say that not every law school says yes to us, but we will work hard to find you a yes in that state.
And
Can I
also,
actually
just
add
to
one thing? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I know you mentioned Flow Recruit earlier. Flow Recruit is like a CRM, is a platform that law firms use for law students to submit their applications. Previously, OCI was a really big thing, on-campus interview, where firms would come to law schools and they would recruit and interview students there. A lot of firms have moved to direct apply applications, so it's much easier to apply for jobs outside of the state your law school is located in. With a direct apply application, it's like any other job application you submitted online. You go into the firm's website, they have an opening. Of course, they'll have an opening for their summer associate positions. If they're in the state that you want to be in, the city you want to be in, you just submit your application yourself. So you don't have to worry about, like, our California schools coming out to, I mean, firms coming out to Delaware to recruit. That's becoming a thing of the past. OCI is slowly kind of like phasing out, and like I said, a lot of firms are using direct apply.
And you said something earlier, and it's in the guide. Your cover letter must include your jurisdictional statement. So you're in law school in Delaware. Why are you applying to firms in North Carolina? Oh, I was born and raised in North Carolina. I'm going back home. You've got to include that jurisdictional statement in your cover letter up front and very clearly.
Thank you all. And I think this actually might be a good place to stop. Of course, we're over, and I'm so appreciative of everyone who stayed on and our panelists. But I think something that we kind of are ending on, which is, I think my big takeaway is we will help you. We will help you get where you want to go. And so, that is something that I hope that you can see through this panel, the opportunities you're going to have at Delaware Law School, the connections, the community partners we have, in the legal community here are just really special. And so I see some people putting some emails in the chat. Please feel free if we didn't answer your question to reach out to us and we can continue engaging. But again, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, let you get on with your night. It's beautiful out there, right? But I do want to say, if you found this helpful, I hope that you will join us at some future events. We have another event coming up on June 24th that's going to all be focused on financial aid. As many of you know, there are some federal financial aid changes that good to be aware of and start making your plan to finance your legal education. That is another thing you can kind of check the box that you won't have to stress about if you have that all in order. So please consider joining us on June 24th. That's virtual registration link, details on our website. And then please mark your calendar. We'll be sending out paper invites, email invites soon to the Dean's Welcome Reception. That is a big in-person party on campus on July 14th. It's going to be a lot of fun, great opportunity for folks to meet one another, connect. It's just a really great time. So make sure you're looking at your emails and you're circling those dates on your calendar so we can keep in touch with you this summer. But otherwise, I want to thank you all. I want to truly thank our panelists, Dean McDonald, Shauna, Lauren, and Aaliyah. Just wonderful perspectives, and we so appreciate your time. So thank you for joining us, and I hope everyone has a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.